All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we're going to be talking about demand, quantity demanded, and price. Okay, now when it comes to demand, it has to do with the amount of good or service that consumers are willing to buy or willing to purchase. Okay, so say for example, if a product is being sold at a certain price, okay, let's say this is $10, and if the consumers are willing to buy this product at $10, okay, this has to do with demand at that price. Okay, demand at this price. And the concept of demand at a certain price is very important because it has to do with equilibrium. It also has to do with profit maximization point, yeah, which we'll talk in later videos. But for the time being, this has to do with demand at this particular price. Okay, and the quantity demanded, and again, this has to do with your profit maximization point as well as your equilibrium, and to some degree, it has to do with your price and the cost on a graph when it comes to monopolies and perfect competitors. Okay, so quantity demanded has to do with, okay, the demand of certain number of units or certain units of a product, okay, at this particular price. So demand for a certain quantity, demand for a certain quantity, for a quantity. Okay, demand for a quantity at this particular price. We know that the price is $10, and whatever the company can make and sell at $10 will be quantity demanded. Okay, so if the company was to produce 20 units, quantity demanded. Okay, so quantity and demand. All right, so quantity and demand. Now, when you look at a graph, we know that you have supply over here. This is your supply curve, and this is your demand curve. Okay, now supply, when it comes to supply, we know that as the price, okay, goes up, the supply curve has an upward slope. Okay, the reason why, as the cost of production goes down, the company or the supplier is able to produce more. Okay, and right where it meets the demand curve would be your point of equilibrium. Okay, and at this point, whatever quantity you have is the quantity demanded by consumers and quantity supplied by suppliers, okay, which should be the same. Okay, at this point, okay, the consumers are willing to pay what the suppliers are willing to sell. Okay, so consumers are willing to pay for a product at a price that the suppliers are willing to sell it for. Okay, and that would be your quantity demanded versus quantity supplied. Okay, now when it comes to price, okay, price is what the supplier is willing to sell a product for. Okay, so this has to do with your supplier's price. Okay, so supplier's listed price. All right, and in most cases, the price will be more than the cost of production, as a result of which the supplier will make a profit. And that's the reason why, okay, the business keeps on moving forward. All right. However, if there is a rise in prices, okay, let's say the prices go up for some reason, assuming that this is price over here, your vertical axis, your horizontal axis is quantity. Okay, assuming that the price goes up for whatever reason, okay, we know that the supplier would be able to produce more because he's going to be able to invest, okay, more into the business, right? However, we also know that as the price goes up, okay, the demand for this product will go down. Okay, so when it comes to demand and price, they have an inverse relationship. So as one goes up, the other one goes down. All right, and this is movement along the curve. Okay, so that is movement along the curve. However, if for some reason, let's assume that this is because of scarcity of raw materials, resources, so on and so forth, because of new technology, okay, so on and so forth. If for some reason the demand was to change for a certain product, demand which is not relative to price, okay, because consider this, at this point, when we talk about movement along the curve, we're talking about the model based on ceteris paribus, all other things being equal. But if the demand changes for whatever reason. And there are other factors to consider when it comes to demand. Okay, if the demand changes in a way that the demand falls, okay, this graph over here will shift. This curve over here will shift to the left. So this will become your D1, your new demand curve. Okay, and as the demand curve shifts to the left, okay, obviously the total quantity demanded by the consumers will go down. Okay, regardless of what the supplier is able to produce. All right. Now, when the quantity demanded goes up, this demand curve shifts to the right. Okay, so assume that this is D2. And the same can be said for supply. Okay, for whatever reason, let's say the cost of production goes down, the supply curve will shift to the right. All right. So, as an example, let's say, for example, gasoline. Okay, if the prices, okay, and we're talking about prices over here, let's draw another graph. Okay, for example, if the prices of crude oil go up for some reason, what's going to end up happening is, okay, the price of crude oil will go up, which means the quantity demanded will go down. Let's assume this is crude oil. And when the quantity demanded goes down, people will try to find alternative. When it comes to gasoline, people will go for diesel, they may go for electric cars, they may go for rental cars, okay, they may go for ride share, okay, they may use ride sharing apps, okay, so on and so forth. Okay, because obviously, okay, as the price goes up, okay, because of what we know about marginal benefit, the marginal benefit of using a vehicle or using gasoline in a vehicle goes down compared to its cost. As a result of which, people find substitutes to use in their everyday life. Okay, and when that happens, okay, as the price goes down, okay, the quantity demanded may go up, but as the price of crude oil goes up, the quantity demanded will go down. Okay, so when that happens, okay, obviously the total quantity that's in demand in the market economy is less compared to what it was before. Okay, so less demand. All right. So apart from that, this is Obey on behalf of V Electronics. Have yourself a great day.